So let's talk a little bit about simulations and other preparedness methods. So we've talked a little about mitigation. So let's talk about simulations and preparation methods. One of the best ways to prepare for threat manifestation or danger appearing or happening is by frequently rehearsing or simulating or drilling the different threats and dangers that can happen. This is one of the most important aspects of security management in terms of preparedness. And often you will see problems in your mitigation management or contingency measures by doing these types of simulations. You'd be surprised at what sounds really great on paper, but once you try to simulate it, is obviously not viable or not the right measure. Also, in my experience, how well or badly people react when things go bad has nothing to do with their job. I have seen really bad incident reactions and actions from people supposedly experienced in security management and excellent ones from the cook, for example. One thing that should be regularly drilled in practice are the SOPs, your standard operating procedures, to check designs. These really need to be more than just paper. They need to be designed specifically for each threat and all of the different variations on this thread. There's a lot of problems in security incidents with SOPs. Yeah? For example, there should be as many variations in the SOP as there are variations on an armed attack on a car, happening along different routes, happening in different ways, evolving in different ways, maybe 2 attackers, maybe 6 attackers, different content to the attack, different levels of violence, different demands, different durations. There are so many different variables to simulate, and you must simulate all possible outcomes to be able to design measures for all possible outcomes. Fires are another simple thing to prepare for, but prevention comes first. Electricity management is a constant issue that needs addressing, and fires are no joke. They can cause a lot of damage and potentially put people at risk of injury or even death. Not to mention electrical shocks and things like that, equipment, blah, blah, blah. I've never understood really why coordinators do not do more simulations. They are really easy to do and really effective, and it gets people working together too. I've prepared an ebook on how to do them, so check that out. They don't require much effort to do. You don't need HQ to do them, and it is one of the best things for threat preparedness that exists because it's action driven. Yeah, different things happen. Yeah, you can look at the variables. They are great for checking reactions and detecting any problems that you might have. I have never run a simulation where I didn't see problems that we could correct in time for the actual thing happening. Also, it's well documented that when we are mentally prepared for something through rehearsing it several times or experiencing it, even though it's not real per se, and we have witnessed it even as a simulation, it will be remembered by the mind and the body. Therefore, our reaction will be better. We won't freeze or have a bad reaction in the event of a gun being pointed at us or a gun going off. Role-playing and thought experiments are also great ways of preparing teams and can be very fun to manage, right? So thought experiments, you don't have to do anything, but you're thinking, okay, what would we do if, and it gets people thinking and it encourages critical thinking. Teams who don't do any of this are not prepared. And when an incident does happen, everything will be more unpredictable because you have not prepared all the different variables, all the different levels of unpredictability that people bring to any situation. You cannot control the perpetrators. Well, you can have techniques to de-escalate, but you need to be able to make sure that your teams are very well prepared, well rehearsed. Unpredictability and experience during a major fire, an intrusion in your base, or an ambush increases the risk of negative outcomes and escalation. When people don't know what to do in a crisis, they panic. People need to know what to do under stress and under duress, under pressure. That is why contingency planning is so important. It exists to facilitate crisis management under stress and pressure. Yeah? That's why you have steps to follow, because you're oriented to the threat. You're under pressure. Practicing different threat manifestations often and involving as many people as possible, especially national staff, is better than having a complicated protocol or waiting for somebody to come and do it with you. Often kidnapping scenarios are simulated once a year or once every 2 years or something like that. But kidnapping, while serious, is not the thing that will happen most in any project. So practice the things, simulate the things, drill the things that are likely to happen the most. Just a quick note on threat thresholds. When organizations do risk analysis and elaborate long-winded security plans that no one can remember, as I mentioned before, there's usually a column that indicates whether the risk is acceptable or not. Again, acceptable to the organization, not to the person living them. This has always struck me as a strange thing because all of the risks are always accepted by the organization. An organization will say, for example, that a staff death is an unacceptable risk, yet aid workers can and do die every year. This is often framed as threat or risk thresholds, but who decides these and how? Often it is the people who will not be exposed to the threat or the incident who decide what is acceptable and what isn't. And those exposed often are not even asked if they explicitly accept this risk or not. There are staff members who, by nature of their jobs, are much more exposed to threats than others, especially those on the move, drivers and program-related staff working on things outside the compounds, and people who work for years in the same operating environment. That is why it is important to do better work on threat threshold decision-making and fairer, more caring rotation of the staff that are more exposed to threats. Ethically, a conversation should be had with people who are more exposed, more information should be given to them, they should be involved in the mitigation measures that are designed, and they should be asked how they feel without any latent threat to their jobs or judgment about their performance. And again, as I said before, they should be involved more than anybody else in more frequent simulations and get more time off from this exposure, as it has psychological consequences. They should also be informed about what will happen if different things happen to them. Yeah? Things shouldn't be decided for them without them being involved. If an organization explicitly or implicitly decides that staff are expendable because the benefit to the population outweighs the sacrifice of an aid worker, then this should be articulated and discussed clearly with the people concerned, right? Also, there's a lack of responsibility and accountability for ensuring threats are managed to the best of our ability. No one wants to point fingers after an incident, but that's not what I'm saying. Cloak and dagger secrecy around events is unhealthy security management and doesn't leverage collective wisdom, right, for information. The right people, not the few people, should be involved, and there should be time and effort engaged to discuss what went wrong and why, without a blaming culture. The problem is that things are so shrouded in secrecy that the learnings aren't disseminated well throughout the different teams. And usually the people who are most exposed are the people who know less about this. Things should be looked at. Was information missed? Many incidents are because information was missed. I could tell many that I missed. Was a mitigation measure not effective, or was it not employed? Was the incident expected or a surprise, and why? Then we need to teach people more than blind compliance during threat manifestation. No, we need to teach people who are regularly exposed to different types of incidents how to think on their feet, how to be prepared, how to develop their judgment and their read skills of the situation, their negotiation skills, their de-escalation skills, and their incident management skills. This can't be like in the hierarchy that isn't even in the incident, right? Because it's the people who are in the incident who are going to be confronted by the perpetrators. So when we say, okay, just do what the guy with the gun says, that's not really the best we can do. We need to prepare people better who are going to be in these incidents, in those skills that I just mentioned, and they are possible to teach. So there's this unspoken or sometimes spoken rule in NGOs that, for example, that it's only hierarchy who should do anything when there's an incident. Yeah, Negotiation is taken by the highest levels, and the highest levels are always the furthest away. But if we taught people to be better prepared and equipped for incidents when they happen, it could make a lot of difference. Being able to calmly read, or not calmly, but read, have enough pause and experience and rehearsal to read an incident that you are in is a skill. And to do it, you have to be able to minimize the fear response or the freeze response that happens and be able to observe the attacker's state of mind and what is happening.